Good morning, everyone. I'm going to ask if my colleagues can find their seats. Thank you. And I know we're still short a quorum by one person. Okay, now we're all going to stare at the door. Is there anybody in the audience that is a alternate for someone here that could come forward? Is your person not here?
Well, I'm an alternate for Chief Mata, I believe.
Oh, then come on up. What's your name?
Yep, there's 17.
Oh, yay. Thank you.
That does put us exactly at quorum.
All right, thank you. I know what that means. Right.
Again, if anyone else is an alternate, please come forward.
All right, we're going to all start texting our friends. All right, so if I could, I'm going to call our reentry network meeting to order. And we'll first begin with a roll call.
Thank you. Chairperson Chavez.
Here.
Member Johnson. Absent. Member Binder. Thank you. I did. Please turn on your microphones or speak very loudly. Member Tamalinas. Absent. Member Zahner. Absent. Member Smith. Absent. Member Lee. Absent. Member Burchard.
Here.
Member Cody. Absent. Member McClinton Brown. Absent. Member O'Neill.
Good morning, I'm here, and I would note that Judge Zahner is no longer the presiding judge, so somebody ought to give notice to Judge McGowan.
Thank you.
Thank you. Member Silver. Absent. Member Rosen. Absent. Member Angel. Absent. Member Nikolai.
Here.
Member Shing. Absent. Member Terrell. Absent. Member Riera.
Here.
Member Mills. Absent. Member Dewan. Absent. Member Bonduras.
Here.
Thank you. Member Fisk.
Here.
Member Reagan. Here. You are. Thank you. And Member Hanson. Absent. Member Halkin. Present. Thank you. Member O'Brien. Absent. Member Kitchens Garcia. Absent. Member Amador Lebeau.
Here.
Member Trinidad. Absent. Member Williams.
Present.
Member Yee. Absent. Member Clifford. Absent. Member Mukoyama.
Here.
Member Manley.
Present.
Member Hernandez. Absent. Member Day. Absent. Member Perumatam. Absent. Member Loftus.
Here.
Member Wolfberg. Absent. Member Vujeni.
Alternate for Kishan Vujini.
Thank you. So Member Brahim is present. Member Mata. Absent. Member Joseph.
Here.
Thank you. Member Wiggins is absent. Member Keong. Absent. Member Kendrick. Absent. Member Ellenberg.
I'm here.
Thank you. You do have just a quorum.
Just a quorum. Great.
We also have a few oaths that need to be
Would you like to do that now?
completed.
All right.
Thank you. If you have an oath in front of you, should be at least one or two. Please stand and raise your right hand. Repeat after me.
I think Wes.
I state your name.
Richard Loftus.
Do solemnly swear or affirm
I do solemnly swear
that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States
I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California
and the Constitution of the State of California
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
and that I will bear true faith and allegiance
and I will bear true faith and allegiance
to the Constitution of the United States
to the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California,
and the Constitution of the State of California,
and that I take this obligation freely
I take this obligation freely
without any mental reservation or
without
purpose
any
of
mental
evasion,
reservation,
and that I will well and faithfully discharge
I will and faithfully discharge
the duties I am about to enter.
duties I'm about to enter.
Thank you very much. If you'll sign that and turn it into me at the end of the meeting.
He's Molly's alternate. Oh, so he can't. No, we gotta, but. We, just because we're so close on quorum, so first we're going to go to public comment, and this is an opportunity to speak to an item that is on the agenda, but not with, I mean, within the purview of this committee, but not on the agenda. Any speakers?
I have none.
Great, okay, so we'll close public comment. And then we're going to go to item 3, which is approving the consent calendar. And on the consent calendar is receiving the report on the county executive's budget. And there's a lot of really good information in that, but I wanted to just make sure, as a tradition of this committee, that you all got a chance to see it. And then to receive the quarterly dashboard from the Office of Diversion and Reentry Services. Could I get a motion and a second for the consent calendar?
So moved.
Second.
So Judge Manley moved, and second from President Ellenberg. Any comments or questions on that item? Seeing none, I'm going to see if there's any public speakers on this item.
I have no requests.
Okay, then we're going to take a roll call vote on our consent calendar.
Chairperson Travis,
Yes.
Member Binder,
Yes.
Member Burchard,
Yes.
Member O'Neill,
Yes.
Member Nicolai,
Yes.
Member Riera,
Yes.
Member Bonduras,
Yes.
Member Fisk,
Yes.
Member Halkin,
Yes.
Member Amador Lebeau,
Yes.
Member Williams,
Yes.
Member Mukoyama,
Yes.
Member Manley,
Yes.
Member Loftus,
Yes.
Member Brahim,
Yes.
Member Joseph,
Yes.
Member Ellenberg.
Yes.
Thank you. I think that concludes the vote.
Thank you. We're going to move to items 4, and we're going to take items 4 and 6 together. Item 4 is to receive a report from the Office of the Sheriff and the Office of County Counsel relating to jail releases and planning. And item 6 is a report from the Office of the Sheriff relating to late-night releases. So if I could ask the staff who are presenting on both of those items to come forward. We'll begin with 4 on the presentation. We'll go to 6 on the presentation. Then we'll see if there are any public comments, and then we'll open it up for the committee. Welcome.
Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning, Supervisor Chavez, Supervisor Ellenberg, and members of the Reentry Network. My name is Laura McCabe, and I'm a Program Manager 2 with the Office of the Sheriff. We were asked, this presentation was already provided in February. It was forwarded because there was a fair amount of data, and the committee members wanted to have an opportunity to continue to review and sift through the data. So this presentation will compare Santa Clara County release data with Alameda County and San Mateo County. It's going to further examine data related to Santa Clara County jail releases, explain policies and procedures related to jail releases in Santa Clara County, and provide details regarding steps taken during incarceration to prepare individuals for release. So the first thing I did was to take a look at data from the 3 counties, Alameda County, San Mateo County, Santa Clara County. Santa Clara County is seen in blue. This is over 3 months, July, August, and September. Alameda County is in orange, and San Mateo County is in green. And as you can see, I mean, their populations are roughly the same. The average daily population is roughly the same across the counties. In July, August, and September, if we take a look at the total number of releases, you can see that the total number of releases for Alameda County tends to be a little higher than the total number of releases from Santa Clara County. This graph is a little confusing, but it takes a look at the bottom, you can see Santa Clara County's data is grouped together, Alameda County's data is grouped together, and San Mateo County's data is grouped together, again for those same 3 months. And if you take a look at the bars themselves, those represent the percentage of individuals released in the daytime, the evening time, and the nighttime. And as you can see from this graph, you can see that the orange bar for Alameda County, which represents the evening graph, is much higher than the orange bar for either Santa Clara County and San Mateo County. I mean, that's really an indicator that they are able to get individuals out during those evening hours at a much higher rate than Santa Clara County or San Mateo County.
Laura, just one question. I'm sorry that I don't remember this from the last presentation. Evening versus night?
Evening versus night. So this data is reported to the Board of
The SCC, yeah.
The SCC, yeah,
Yeah.
Board of State and Community Corrections, right? So this data is reported there, and so the timing is for the evening would be 5 p.m. to 11 p.m. The night releases is 11 p.m. to 6 a.m., and then the daytime release is 6 a.m. to 5 p.m.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So if we take a look at the releases in each county by the month, we find that these are the night releases in each county by the month, and you can see that we do have a higher Santa Clara County, which is shown in blue, has a higher number of night releases per month than either Alameda County or San Mateo County. Excuse me. I then wanted to go dive a little more deeply into the data, and so I took a look at how individuals were released and really grouped those releases into categories. So anybody who was released by any type of bail, I grouped together. If pretrial initiated it or pretrial touched it, then I called it a pretrial initiated release. Anybody who was just cite and released, I called that cite and release. And other releases would be sentenced releases, no probable cause to hold them, charges were dropped, various other categories. But you can see as in looking at here, 24% of the people were released on bail, 28% were pretrial initiated, 19% were cite and release, and 29% were other releases. So releases are processed expeditiously as possible in accordance with the law. Our jails cannot hold individuals longer than they are permitted by law. When courts indicate that a daytime release is necessary, they are processed during the daytime. Individuals from custody may stay in the jail lobby until they're ready to leave. Prior to release, our rehabilitation officers meet with individuals shortly after they're housed and periodically while they remain in custody. They arrange for individuals to participate in programs, educational and vocational, and they connect individuals with services during their stay and prior to release. Are there any questions?
We're going to go to item 6,
Okay.
and then we'll come back for the public, and then we'll go for questions.
Thank you.
So everybody write your questions down. Keep them in your head.
Good morning, Chair Chavez and members of the Reentry Network.
Hold on, let me change the PowerPoint.
Sure.
Okay, it'll just be just a second while we change the presentation. Okay, so now let's go. I should just open the other one, right? Because we might have to toggle back and forth. Okay, so I need to stop when you leave, so excuse me for 1 sec. Good, I'm ready to go. Thank you. Thank you for that.
Again, good morning, Chair Chavez and members of the Reentry Network. My name is Lieutenant Rita Rowland, and I currently oversee the women's facility. I'm joined today again with Laura McCabe, who's a programs manager too with the Office of the Sheriff. We are following up with the previous presentation that you saw in item 4, which compared releases between Santa Clara County, Alameda County, and San Mateo County. Given the previous comparison, we have further examined the data between Santa Clara County and Alameda County. Shown in the graph is the percentage of releases by county by month over 3 months, July through September of 2022. The blue bars illustrate the day releases in which the data demonstrates that the percentage of releases are about the same between the counties. The orange bars illustrate the evening releases in which the data demonstrates a greater percentage of evening releases in Alameda County compared to Santa Clara County. The gray bars illustrate the night releases in which the data demonstrates a much lower percentage of night releases in Alameda County compared to Santa Clara County. We conducted a more in-depth investigation of the releases that took place in Alameda County. We went on site to visit the Santa Rita Jail to learn more about their release policies and procedures, and to figure out how they are able to let people out of the facility earlier in the evening. What we found is that Alameda County has a jail management system that communicates directly with the courts, with their courts Odyssey system. This crucial connection allows the Santa Rita Jail to receive data from the courts expeditiously. It also allows for faster processing of the information necessary for release. Therefore, they are able to release a greater number of individuals during the evening hours than the Santa Clara County Sheriff is with its paper-based system. The Sheriff's Office is working with the Procurement Department to find a suitable jail management system to meet its needs, including one that will communicate directly with the court's Odyssey system. Our expectation is that the release process will be much faster once we have the full communication between the courts and the jail in place. The Sheriff's Office will be creating a focus group to prepare for the switch to the jail management system. This focus group will bring together various internal and external partners to ensure a more efficient communication system and faster release processing. While improved communication between the jail management system and the court system is being established, we will continue to review the data in order to investigate other steps that may be taken to minimize the number of night releases. This allows us to focus on areas that need attention. For example, the issue of releasing women during the nighttime hours is one that has been brought up as a concern both by this committee and the Board of Supervisors. This table details the number of men and women released during various times of the day by the type of releases from January through March of this year. This allows us to focus on areas that need attention and identify potential solutions. As part of our gender-responsive work, the Sheriff's Office, working in partnership with the Office of Reentry Services, will begin a pilot program for individuals who are released at night. Through this program, women released between the hours of 11 p.m. and 6 a.m. who don't have a place to spend the night will be connected with the Mission Street Recovery Station for services. This pilot will last 6 months. We will evaluate the program after 3 months to make changes and enhancements. Change the slide. We're available for questions.
Thank you. I'm going to see if there's any members of the public who would like to speak on this item.
I see no requests.
None. Okay, so we're going to close the public hearing, and then I'm going to go in this direction, Wes. And then I'm going to come right to you, Susan.
Yes, I've been. Hello?
Go ahead and use this one.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I've been working with the jail for about 30 years in mental health, and also I'm a chaplain. This has always been a problem with evening and night releases. I've had terrible times of trying to get a taxi to a shelter, like Maranatha. It seems that Santa Clara is always releasing people around midnight or even later. And this prevents them from going to agencies or getting public transportation to where they need to go. I do hope your new program works, but it shouldn't be a pilot program. It should have been done years ago. That's my comment.
Just a simple question. Are they given access to phones as they wait in the lobby so they can either call Uber or friend, relative, or that?
So your specific question is about phones. We do have phones in the lobby, and according to a new law, inmates are allowed 3 free phone calls after release, and then I wanted to say also that we do have taxi vouchers for individuals who need them, so they will be asked if they have a ride, and they can be given a taxi voucher.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I have a question regarding your comments relating to connecting people being released at night or in the evening with the Mission Street Center. What exactly is the Mission Street Center going to do?
The Mission Street Recovery Station will allow them to stay overnight. They have services there. They have, I think Javier Aguirre would be able to provide a lot more information about exactly what they can do for them. But the idea is they will have a place to go, and it's a place where it's right next to the reentry center. They can connect with the reentry center as well. It's more of a warm handoff, but it's a nicer, safer space to stay than, maybe not safer, but it's a nicer place to stay than the lobby. They have reclining chairs and where they can spend the night.
And if those are filled, because the Mission Street has a goal to work with others, is it just simply an alternate to the lobby? I mean, they're not being connected with treatment, they're not being connected with services, they're just going there to wait until the morning. Am I correct?
I think at this point, we're hoping that this affords the reentry center to be able to connect with them so that they can have more services available. You're here, thank you.
Wouldn't you need a lot more staff for that?
Good morning, Javier Aguirre, the Director, Office of Diversion and Reentry Services. In response to your question, Judge Manley, so currently the Mission Street Recovery Station has capacity for 13 recliners. We're not always at full capacity, and it is a 24/7 operation. We are moving the location to a new permanent site at the reentry center that would allow us to have 20 recliners up to 33 recliners. Currently, custody health staff can provide give the individual the referral to access the Mission Street Recovery Station. So we're already doing that for those individuals that need a safe place. Those that do come to the Mission Street Recovery Station have a warm place to stay, and then they'll be able to access services once the reentry center is open. So we're doing a pilot project with the Sheriff's Office, so the desk deputies can also provide that similar service that Custody Health has available to them.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I'll note also quickly with apologies, we're working to get someone else to add to the quorum here because I need to leave in just a few minutes. I didn't imagine we would be so close, so with apologies. The committee has had a lot of discussion about how to begin the reentry process immediately upon booking as a best practice, and I was really pleased to see that the role of the rehabilitation officers has been designed to move that reentry planning up to do just that. I also want to commend the Sheriff's Office for taking initiative to address, as we're talking about once again, the late night releases through the pilot with the Office of Diversion and Reentry Services. But I want to just kind of take a step back because I think the pilot importantly addresses a symptom, but I want to think about what the root causes are that may have obviated the need for the pilot. So in thinking through with me about operations, does everyone get, my first question is, does everyone get a discharge plan with a rehabilitation officer ahead of time that considers a range of options to which people could be released and gets them lined up with something that would work best for them well before this release, or is this happening just in the hours before, the immediate hours before they're released?
The focus group discussed previously will have multiple facets, and some of those that you have named. One of the facets will be to study information on those who have been released, to identify those gaps within our system, and develop recommendations to resolve those issues.
Thanks. I'm not sure that quite answers my question. Maybe I didn't ask it clearly. How far in advance does this process start about where they're going to go upon release?
The rehabilitation officers, they every day they look at the list of who's going to be released in the next 2 weeks, and they begin working with those individuals.
So the conversation begins in some cases up to 2 weeks before?
In some cases, yes. In other cases, if they've been working already with the programs unit through taking programs, they may have an opportunity to connect and really develop a profile of what that individual will need.
Thanks. I imagine that what I'm looking for is your same goal, is that every single person is released with a discharge plan and clear direction. And I'm glad to hear that a barrier is not that we are necessarily starting too late, but if as this pilot continues, you're able to document and track those that do not leave with a discharge plan, what happens to those folks? What percentage are leaving without a plan? How do we reduce that number? And what else might we need to be adding, whether it's, I know adding more staff is always a sensitive subject, but do we need more people to be engaged earlier? Do we need more options for discharge that match people's needs better? And any other issues that you find that arise in somehow blocking that successful discharge would be really helpful for this committee as well as your practice to hear. Thank you again very much.
Thank you, Supervisor Ellenberg.
Good morning. Thank you for both of your reports. I think you provided a lot of information that's come up in the form of questions in previous meetings. So I have two questions. One is, and maybe I missed it in your presentation, how are women getting from Women's Elmwood to the Sobering Center?
They'll be able to take a taxi.
Okay. And taxis are running that time of evening? That's not a problem? Okay,
Right.
Thank you. My other question is related to sort of the root causes that President Ellenberg mentioned. And I think you answered this question in looking at how Alameda County, other counties are able to effectuate releases sooner. It has to do with the communication between the jail management system and the sheriff's office to move the releases more quickly. And I did whisper to the undersheriff to ask how long he thought the jail management system implementation was going to take to fix this problem, and it sounds like a year and a half or so. So I'm just saying this out loud because that's a long time, and I don't think, although I think the pilot program is great, I think ultimately we really need to figure out how to get people out sooner. So I know Matt Fisk has been working some with the court, but I think we need to continue to keep our eye on other ways until the JMS is implemented to get the court to communicate with the jail to get people out. And I don't know whether you all have some thoughts on what we can do in the interim.
And that is the plan, is to really look at those releases and find out where the gaps are and to figure out what we can do while we're waiting on the jail management system to come, to see if we can have a positive impact to release individuals earlier and not at night.
If I may add too, on the question about transportation from Elmwood to the Mission Street Recovery Station. So in addition to the taxi voucher, the Mission Street Recovery Station also has a van. So they do pick up from location. So if there are individuals that need a safe shuttle service from Elmwood to Mission Street Recovery Station, staff will call the Mission Street Recovery Station to see if that's available. We also have our faith-based collaborative have the resource tables, although they're only there from 7:30 to 10:30 p.m. Monday to Thursday. They could also access the staff there to help them transport them to the Mission Street Recovery Station. But of course, during this pilot program, we'll see the volume and see how many individuals need that shuttle service and what we could do to increase that.
I think if I could, one recommendation or request that I would make as part of this hearing is that, or discussion, is that when we do our budget discussions, I would just ask through Casey if we can have TSS report out on the progress, because to be frank with you, unfortunately, what Sheriff Bender said that we would get there in 2 years, I think I heard about 6 years ago, and so we're way off track. And I think the opportunity that we're missing is so profound that we need to remedy this. And so if we can have TSS pull this out as part of their budget presentation to talk about where we are with this particular project would be very helpful.
I'll relay that message to Nina.
Thank you. And then the second, go ahead, Nick. Or Chief.
Just a couple questions regarding some of the data. So I'm hearing that there's a capacity of 13. What's been the average number of women who have utilized those services? And I'm just speaking really of after hours.
So we did look at that, and that's where this table right here is averaged out over the 3 months from main jail in Elmwood, the number of males and females released, and the hours in which they're released. And we took a look at this data, and even though this is an average, so there may be days when it's higher than others, we did take a look at the data, and we do think it's doable as the recovery center is now, and we would like to, so we'd like to proceed with the pilot. But as we see, in 3 months and over time, we'll see that there'll be changes that need to be made. But we thought this was a really good start, and we're very happy with the partnership that we've been able to develop with the Office of Reentry Services on this. And I would like to thank Javier Aguirre for really bringing this to our attention and allowing us to participate in this to create this program, essentially.
So I guess I'm just curious, is there a space for the women separate than the men? Or are they in the lounge chairs next to one another? And I don't know.
At the current location of the auditorium, there is space, there's separation, and then as we move to the new location, there will be separate rooms for that are separated, the men and women. And in the new location, we'll have a laundry and also showers and restrooms on site. And we're hoping that what Mission Street Recovery Station is looking for warm meals that can be brought in daily.
Nick, did that answer all your questions?
Yes, but there's just still a lot more when it comes to gender responsive services from, and very differently. And so how the women come to us in that environment, are there folks there in the morning Because if they get released between midnight and in the morning, what's the process upon release? Are they given assessments? Is there a rehab counselor who's making contact with them? Is it your staff there making contact with them? Are we starting with the assessments immediately? And food and clothing, is there a closet where folks who need clothing because they've just spent the night in jail or however long they've been in jail? I mean, there's a lot of different services that we should be making immediately before they leave. Yes, they have a place to go to for the night, but catching them and providing services for them and eligibility and just all kinds of assessments and services before they even leave, so that we don't lose that. Because once they're gone, it's very difficult sometimes to be in contact with them.
Right. Let me just intervene for a moment and make a point about the presentation. So the entire reason we're having this discussion is that and this is something I think we need to just make sure that as we're doing reports to any committee, that we're really able to say what's the problem we're trying to solve. And so let's get to what that is. The problem we were trying to solve is really trifold. One is that releasing people, depending on that person's capacity, depending on when we release them, is a danger to them. Not even to the community, but to them. And we had at least one incident where somebody was released very late at night, had some level of dementia, and was injured. And another more, we had something even more serious happen. So that's one issue, just what's our responsibility to make sure we're handling other human beings and at their capacity appropriately. The second is that this committee and all of our committees have really focused on well-being and safety, and we don't want people to recidivate, particularly right after they've gotten out of custody. And so whatever opportunities we have to support that person so that we can safely release them, which is the objective, is really what we're trying to do here. The third, and this is something that's come up through the years, is that we want to improve the communication between all of our systems so that we can answer the questions that you've just asked. And one of the big issues, and I think President Ellenberg raised this, is how are we handling people when they're leaving? And that very much depends on how long they've been in custody, whether or not we knew they were leaving, are they a cite and release? I mean, all of the things that you all know. And so what I would just say about this pilot is I think it's the right direction, but I want to remind everybody, what are the problems we're trying to solve? And then are we responding to the folks that we're releasing in a way that mitigates those issues? And I think so anyway, the reason I say all that is that I think and the reason I wanted the report to be held is I thought it was really important that this body have an opportunity to have the conversation to really reaffirm what we're trying to accomplish and whether or not the pilot matches that. I'm not sure yet because I think the problem that we're dealing with is one that's been difficult to get our arms around because of the volume of human beings who are coming in and out of custody. And so one of the slides I just want to point out is those numbers, releasing hundreds of people a day and then making sure that we have systems to that appropriately interface with them and that we have services that interface with them. I don't think we're close. I mean, I don't think we're not doing something. We are, but are we close? I don't think so. And that I think is partly why having a pilot actually makes some sense, because I think it's going to help us scale up to be responsive. And then I think there are a number of people that we should be thinking about what they're being cited and released for that may need something very different. And the other thing, we've looked at this data a long time ago. We have a lot of people, not a lot, we have some number of people who come into custody who we don't see again. I mean, ever. We just don't, they did something dumb and their families jumped all over them or, whatever. We don't see them again. So all that is to say that what I think we need to make sure we're looking at is what the total number of people is we're releasing and where are they really being impacted or not. All of these should equate to not solely percentages, but actual numbers so that we know how many people we're interfacing with, and then refine it, because we're not going to do a program for 1,000 people a day. We're not, and we don't need to. We need to refine who we're trying to focus on and then refine the services around them. And I think, Nick, Chief, that goes back to the questions that you just raised about, who is it? Are they getting the services they need? And And are we able to focus on that targeted number of people? It's not 1,000. Whatever it is, we need to figure that out. And then separately, I'll just say this, is I've had a concern always that we release people at random hours. You know, and I know there's a lot, I know there's a reason we do that. We don't want to hold anybody longer than we're allowed to by law, but it kind of flies in the face of common sense. And I'm concerned about that. And so I'm concerned that we have night releases at all. Like that does not make sense to me. And I think it spreads our resources, our very, very limited resources, over a 24-hour period that may or may not be appropriate. And so, you know, that'll be for not the pilot, but just something I think, again, that we should be discussing. Chief?
The other thing is the site and releases, and that's a different bucket.
Right.
And we do know, for the folks who've been there for a while, and the rehab officers have been working with those folks, obviously, in their release dates, and they have a better understanding. But the site and releases is a separate bucket and a separate discussion. Like the time and effort that the sheriff's office and those folks are working with someone who's going to be just cited and released in custody, and do they need to be there to begin with for a cite and release? Is that something that can be done safely in the community for a cite and release? Is that counted against their jail population? And I don't know that. I'm sorry when they're there. And there's a significant number of cite and releases. Is there a way that we could certainly make an impact in the cite and release in the way we do it so that it doesn't impact the jail, it doesn't impact the officers who spend an hour, hour and a half with someone who's just going to be cited and released? I mean, there's different ways to look at it, and that's a separate bucket. But I just wanted to raise that.
Well, and on that front, you know, one of the things that that we've asked at Public Safety and Justice is the total number of arrests that are being made. And to be frank with you, I think that the officers are doing quite a lot of cite and release in the community already. And so I think this is a discussion with the chiefs about under what circumstances, you know, how are those decisions being made on the street? Because I do think we have a significant volume that are already being cited and released in community. And if somebody's bringing someone to jail, I think we need to understand the why of that before we ask them to do less of it. Because one of the other challenges we have is we have to look at, again, community well-being and safety, and the judgment of officers, the judgment of the, you know, the public defender's office, the district attorney's office. There's a lot of partners in there, and I actually think we should be looking at the cite and release we're already doing, because I don't disagree with you, Nick, that now that we've had a few years of more data, that there's probably information there that would help us in partnership with those folks that are on the ground, really interfacing with the public. And so we should think a little bit about how to frame that and bring it back to committee. And maybe to Public Safety and Justice. All right, I'm going to take a couple more.
I want to say something. Can you put years ago when hello?
We can hear you.
Years ago, when the new jail was proposed, I was here, there were a program for 90-day discharge plans. Whatever happened to that? I mean, Supervisor Ellenberg's asking for 2 weeks, but we wouldn't have people sitting in seats in shelters if we had a comprehensive discharge plan that was proposed years ago. I don't know what happened to that, maybe money or maybe funds, but we ought to take a look at longer discharge plans for people who will not recidivate.
So
We'll stop
I know
recidivism.
we're working on that now, and I don't think it's a 2-week. I'm not sure who can answer that question,
I could maybe give some input.
but maybe we should have someone from the jails, if there's to come forward on that. But go ahead, Judge Manley.
What I was going to mention is the Medicaid, new Medicaid program, the CalAIM, the waiver for California was approved. And so now we will be able to do discharge planning by behavioral health. Now, of course, that doesn't relate to those individuals who would not be going into a treatment program, but it will allow them to be in the jail, and it's a whole process and it does begin 90 days before release for those people that are held that long. But for those who are going to be released sooner, we'll have a workforce, the availability of a workforce federally funded to be in the jail doing that work.
Yeah, and that's a good change for
And
us.
and if they were
And then
released
Wes, let me
during the
just-
day, they could go to the agencies that could help them.
Right. Thank you. Welcome. No,
How about now?
perfect.
Very good. Good morning, Chair, Supervisor Chavez, and members of the Reentry Network. I am Assistant Sheriff David Sepulveda, Custody Bureau Operations. With regard to the 90-day planning that we were planning for the new jail, it was associated with a specific type of housing we were building that brings all community-based services, our internal programs, and others together in one place with all the inmates that were being released within 90 days. It was specifically designed to house a variety of folks together that weren't normally housed together, but that was specifically based on the design of that particular housing area. We are continuing our efforts, and I can say that our programs unit does begin that process much further back than 90 days as they interact with individuals who come into custody, and we start our planning efforts with them, starting with an assessment and working with that individual and working with our CBOs to meet the needs of the individual as they go through incarceration. Putting them into the proper programs while in custody so that we can continue to bridge that when they get out of custody. So that process does start much earlier. We do have a very fluid population, as you know, and so unfortunately, and some folks get released before we can complete those processes, but that doesn't mean that we're not trying to still connect them at that point. But as we continue to go forward, we will continue to drill down and try to meet those needs as early on in the incarceration process as possible. And we're working on trying to get that started at the intake process, but it does take some time and effort. And so I will say, to answer your question, we do start that at the very beginning as early as possible.
Do you have outcome data from what your program is doing? Do you have outcome data from what your program is doing?
We do. We do have outcome data for the individuals that we begin and have our case planning for.
And again, one request I'll make is that perhaps we can have that come back at a future agenda item. And again, I just want to make sure we're not just using percentages, we're using numbers. We need to be very realistic with folks. And I'll just add, Wes, I think when I very first got on this committee, that was one of my very first requests that we would be doing this. So I'm very interested in the outcome of that as well. And also, again, looking at recidivism rates, because what we're trying to figure out is what is it that we can do that, again, community well-being. So with that, I'm going to ask for a motion and a second to receive both 4 and 5. I'm going to ask my staff to work with the sheriff's office to have I forgot what the program is. What is the program called that we're using for engaging folks in custody sooner? Anyway, whatever the program is that you have now, that get reported out, and that we ask behavioral health to help us understand the strategies that are going to be used to use the new CalAIMS programming. And I recognize that may be relatively new, but would be interested in understanding how that planning is going to be structured. And then finally, that TSS report out through budget about how the communication system is working between the jail and the courts. Did I leave anything out for folks? All right, with that, I'm going to ask for a motion and a second.
A vote's not required to receive.
Yeah, I know, but since I'm adding some direction.
Okay.
Yeah. We have a motion from Judge Manley, a second from Public Defender O'Neill.
Chairperson Chavez?
Yes.
Member Bender?
Yes.
Member Lee?
Yes.
Member Burchard?
Yes.
Member O'Neill?
Yes.
Member Nicolai? Member Riera? Member Bonduras?
Yes.
Member Fisk?
Yes.
Member Halkin? Member Amador Lebeau?
Yes.
Member Williams?
Yes.
Member Mukayama?
Abstain.
Member Manley? Member Loftus? Member Brahim?
Yes.
Member Joseph? Member Ellenberg is absent. Thank you.
Thank you. We're going to move to item 5, and this is to receive a report from the Office of the County Executive relating to jail population and booking.
So Chairperson, this information was presented at the last Reentry Network meeting and continued to this one. We did make it all the way through the slides with the talking points. I'm happy to do it again if you'd like. Or
No,
we,
I think that's okay. Let me
Okay.
just see if there are any questions from that presentation. You know, if I could, there's just one slide that I thought might be of value to pull up. And that was, if you could go to the, if you could go to the second to the last, or maybe it is the last slide.
on assisted releases.
Yes.
So Chairperson, there's the snapshot data and then there's the highest charge category. Which one would you like?
Oh, you know what? I don't need either of them because you answered my question yesterday, and just when you said that, very slyly, I remembered that. Let me ask from my colleagues, are there any questions on this item that they wanted to discuss? No? What I would say, colleagues, if you did not have a chance to look at this, the one slide that I just will ask, or two, is if you could just show the slide for the monthly jail bookings. This goes back to the point I was just trying to raise about how many people are in jail. So colleagues, the only reason I'm looking at the felony and misdemeanor monthly jail bookings is that I just wanted to reinforce that as we're looking at solutions, we really do have to take a look at who we're targeting for what service, because one thing I worry about is that because these numbers are so large, that it's putting us in a position of saying we have a program where we don't for everybody. We don't, and we shouldn't. And so that was the only reason I thought this, I wanted to make sure that people saw this. So thank you. All right, so then we're going to go on to our next item, which is item 7, I believe. Jess, am I right about that? All right, this is to receive a report from the Office of Diversion and Reentry Services relating to current family connections and reunification process and services offered to reentry clients.
Good morning. Again, Javier Aguirre with the Office of Diversion and Reentry Services, and Chad Martins, Assistant Director for our office, will be loading up the PowerPoint presentation, and he'll do the presentation. Thank you.
Good morning, Chair Chavez, Reentry Network members, Chad Martin's Office of Diversion and Reentry Services. So this is an update on family connection work that my office, DRS, is working with the Office of Mediation and Ombud Services, or OMOS. And the goal of this work is to make sure that people who need to reconnect with family or close friends, loved ones, can start these conversations ideally in custody, but also during reentry to start repairing these relationships and working on finding solutions together. So in regards to updates, we've continued to collaborate with Office of Mediation and Ombud Services. DRS and OMOS have collaborated since August when we last came to report. And if you remember at the last meeting we discussed, we had worked with Public Defender's Office and some other partners, as well as met with some lived experience advisory board members, people that have been in these situations before, to learn from them. And then we had some plans to collaborate further and expand services. However, we lost some key staff in the process, and so currently, while we figure that out, we've pivoted to kind of really focusing on discharge planning and release. And so what we really want to do is work, and what we've been doing is working with our service navigation programs, faith-based programs, and rehab officers. So we're meeting with them and the 7 case management programs that provide wraparound services. And together, these touch points are, people being released in discharge planning, people at resource tables being connected with at release in front of Elmwood, people working with providers in the community on reentry planning, and just in general, other places as well, like the courts. And so we're hoping that, really engaging with these touch points, we can better identify people and also improve ease of access to these services. So to better identify them, we're trying to work with navigators and faith-based and rehab officers, and ease of access wise, we are working on revising the referral process. So we've scrapped the old referral process, which, if you remember, was a kind of a tedious form where somebody would have to fill out, or somebody on their behalf would have to fill out all the information, who they are, who they want to connect with, circumstances around that, potential issues. So now we've scrapped that, and we are using a flyer that just basically says, we want to help you reconnect with family, here's what we do, and then it has a phone number and an email. So anybody can call in custody or in the community or email, and what Almost will do is reach out to them and have a conversation, and during that dialogue, that's when they'll capture all the information they need, pre-screen them, assess the circumstances for any issues like restraining orders or relationships that are toxic. So we're hoping with that, it'll be much easier for people to access the services, and we'll see an increase in interest in terms of phone calls and emails to the office. So in terms of next steps, we want to add an additional layer of outreach. So Almost is going to be presenting its services to people in custody, to groups, just to say, hey, we're here for this service, this is how we can help you, and encouraging them to call or email. And then based on these efforts, we're going to monitor capacity moving forward. So if they're getting a ton of interest, they'll work through that caseload. If interest is still low, we'll expand to a larger network and reassess from there. And then if interest is still low, or if they still have capacity, we'll expand it to an even larger network. That is the updates I have, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. I'm going to see if there are any questions from any of my colleagues. I don't see any. The only thing I, again, would ask is that when we're doing presentations and slides, again, we're looking at the total number of people that we have the capacity to serve as well. Because I think, again, we're always looking to see, are we meeting the need or not? All right, so I'm going to move on then with our next item, which is item 8. All right, this is to receive a report from the Office of the Public Defender relating to the pre-arraignment representation and review. Our PAR team, welcome. Welcome.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I know those mics are tricky.
Okay.
Good morning. My name's Megan Piano. I'm an attorney at the Public Defender's Office who supervises our pre-arraignment representation and review program, or PAR. Seated to my left is Charlie Hendrickson, an assistant public defender in our office.
And I apologize. I wanted to start by introducing Megan. Thank you. But she did that admirably. Megan is our new PAR supervisor. It was previously Carly Ware. She was our first dedicated PAR attorney. She has since moved on to work with Stanford University in their criminal defense clinic, and Megan assumed that role in February of this year. And with that,
So the PAR team was launched by the Public Defender's Office with early support from the Santa Clara County Board of Supervisors, and we are so thankful for that. Can you hear me?
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought he was gonna. I'm really excited to be here to talk to you all today about the PAR program. From a legal perspective, our goal is representing those charged with crimes from the earliest point possible. But from a human perspective, our goal is to counsel clients immediately upon their booking into jail, answer questions, reduce anxiety, relieve fears, reach out to family members, identify mental health concerns, and seek early investigation and case representation. And from a community perspective, we do this to eliminate wealth disparity in early representation, to provide our indigent community members with the same level of representation received by our wealthy neighbors. So I didn't realize that we don't have animation, but I'm just going to talk through the slide. I sit before you here today as a supervisor. However, that's a recent change. I've been a proud public defender for almost 15 years, and I've been a PAR attorney for the past year. And I have seen firsthand the impact that PAR representation has on our clients and on our interactions with our system partners. This means that now, traditionally, prior to speaking with an attorney, our client had participated in a criminal investigation, been booked into county jail, and served time anywhere between 2 to 5 days before their first court date or their arraignment date. It was at this date where they would meet an attorney for the first time. On the felony in custody arraignment calendars, there generally appears anywhere between 20 to 30 clients per afternoon, and the public defender handles the majority of those arraignments. During that time, with each individual, we would have to discuss the charges, briefly review the police report, ask about ability to make bail, family ties, mental health issues, and community connections, possible defenses, and advise about constitutional rights, and then ask the person right then and there to make a decision about what the next step in their case is. With PAR representation, that has changed, because before, when we didn't have time to ask the questions that are in the heart, now, before a person gets into a courtroom, we can ask questions like, are you okay? Have you talked to your family? Who has your children? Does your boss know that you're in jail? Can we make a call to try to prevent you from losing your job? Do you have a mental health diagnosis? Are you currently on your medications? And is there any way that we can help you develop a release plan to share with the judge at your first court date? PAR changes the prior paradigm. PAR allows us to add humanity and equal representation to the pre-arraignment process. We can all be proud of the fact that Santa Clara County is a leader in the emerging standard of care in public defense work, so much so that the Committee on the Revision of the Penal Code, in their 2022 report, recognized PAR's early representation model. They recognize that it both reduces recidivism and also saves money. Their recommendation 6 in 2022 to change the penal code is to add insured defense counsel before arraignment, have counsel appointed within 24 hours of booking into custody so that we can provide meaningful representation before going into court. This conclusion is also supported by the UC Berkeley California Policy Lab, who partnered with the Santa Clara County Public Defender's Office in 2020 when PAR was only a small pilot program. Their study compared outcomes of those who received PAR representation after being booked into the jail versus those who did not. And despite this phase 1 study being cut short by the COVID-19 pandemic, the randomized study definitively showed that 1, PAR representation resulted in more and earlier releases, and that 2, PAR representation improved case outcomes. We can look at our own data within our office to see that we are beginning to realize our vision of early representation for all clients booked on felony charges. In the past year, we merged our PAR team with our arraignment team, And myself, along with 5 other lawyers, were trained in the PAR arraignment model and worked together to provide representation from a client's booking through their arraignment. In doing so, we were able to meet with 1,312 individuals in the county jail. That's 1,312 jail conversations, questions asked, and anxieties reduced, early identification of mental health issues, and beginning to develop important release plans to stabilize our client and get them back into the community. It allows us to represent our clients in a more holistic way. At arraignment, I truly felt that instead of appearing on a case, I was now representing a human being with their own individualized considerations. Of those 1,312 people, we were able to talk to 459 different families. There was not a single phone call to a family out in the community that was not met with great thanks, great appreciation, questions asked, and a desire to help bridge the gap between custody and out of custody for our clients. As a lifelong public defender, I can say that one of the most important things that affects the attorney-client relationship is trust. The PAR program allows us to build early trust relationships with clients and our families that not only affects our representation, case outcomes, but also affects all members of the criminal justice system in the way that we are able to interact with our justice system partners. Santa Clara County should be proud that we are leaders in systemic change and a gold standard of public defender representation. Our office has been asked to consult throughout the state and advise other public defenders' offices who want to model their program after ours. And we've been receiving calls from offices and programs across the nation curious to know how we set our program up and analyzing the outcomes that we are seeing. Thank you.
Thank you. First, I'll see if there are any comments from the public.
I have no requests.
Seeing none, I'm going to move to our public defender, Ms. O'Neill.
Thank you, Supervisor Chavez, and thank you, Charlie and Megan. That was, it's always very exciting to hear about our PAR efforts, and we're really proud of it. It's true they've done a lot of training statewide, but I wanted to thank you specifically, Supervisor Chavez, for championing the launch of this program, and also Assistant District Attorney David Angel, who's been very involved from the get-go. So we're really hopeful. We've got some good early reports in terms of positive outcomes, and we're very excited about scaling this up. And Megan, who is newly supervising the unit, but who's been in the unit quite a while, has a lot of really innovative ideas to do that. So we're very excited, and thank you for letting us present about it today.
No, my pleasure. Any comments or questions?
Just a
Williams?
comment. Thank you for this program. This is great. Absolutely phenomenal. But I would just suggest one thing. If you would, in those questions, if you would put, would you like us to contact your clergy? In the minority community, oftentimes we're transportation, we're contacting family members who can't get contacted, people that don't have families often just come straight to clergy. And so if you enter that in, is there any clergy you'd like to us to contact? And just representing faith-based, we're able to respond to some of those things, and churches and clergy are too. So thank you again for what you've done.
And that's a great idea. We'll make sure to start asking that.
Thank you. I'm really intrigued with the research in Philadelphia, and of course I don't have my right glasses, but anyway, on one point in that research shows that 64%. So this says, I'm reading off of packet page 130, but it says, in Philadelphia found that people who were provided assistance from the public defender's office before their bail hearings were 64% less likely to have a bail violation and 26% less likely to be arrested in the future. And I'm curious, why would that be the case? Like, what about the program means that people aren't violating their bail?
I'm assuming that's a measurement from the Philadelphia study?
Yes.
I I can only speculate as to the underlying reason for that, but I really think it goes back to something that Megan touched on, which was the development of trust relationship with the client, that they now have a connection with the attorney, and there's that established relationship and that building of trust somehow, I think, allows people a connectivity to the system and to an attorney, and there is an accountability and a responsibility that comes with that, the creation of that relationship. So I think we're on the right track. The sooner we can establish these relationships, the better outcomes we're going to have for our clients, not just in terms of immediate release, because that really isn't the only goal. The goal really is better outcome for the individual long term, whether that's less days in custody for the case, reduction of charges, but also a responsibility of coming to court and seeing that process through, which is ultimately going to serve them better than if they were to, say, fail to appear.
Well, I think that the bail violation reduction, that's significant, given that we have a challenge with that in our own county overall, in terms of people not, failing to appear. So that's one thing I'd be really interested in us understanding better. And then the other is that the 26% less likely to be arrested in the future. And one question I would have about that is that, and again, this may be of value since Philadelphia's a little ahead of us just in terms of a timeline, but if the contact, for example, with employers and with family members allows not to have that gap in income, family income in particular, and I raise this because, from talking to folks with lived experience, I had a very interesting discussion with somebody who made a choice to not recidivate, right, and ended up in one of our programs and is doing really well. But one thing that he said had happened to him is previously when he had been arrested, he'd been incarcerated, he came home, he saw that his family didn't have shoes and other things, and he went right back to dealing because it was the fastest way to make a bunch of money. And it was one of the first times I'd heard somebody actually explain in a personal way, the economic decision that got made relative to relative to not wanting to go back into custody and all that. So I think I would be very interested in, if you all have connections to Philadelphia, it'd be interesting to have a longer discussion with them, because as we look at opportunities to expand programming, this is one of those areas we've already seen good results. It would make sense to invest, if we can, in the expansion of the program. I would like to do that relative to understanding what part of the program needs to be expanded. I think one challenge we had in the beginning is I really wanted attorneys, and this would happen in Santa Clara County. I'm like, we need more attorneys, and Molly said, no, we need social workers. I'm like, rah, rah, rah. So anyway, so I would want to understand that better from your perspective, but I think it would be really helpful to understand that relative to the outcomes that we're seeing both here and in other places.
You'll be happy to know our budget request this year is for 2 attorneys for the PAR team.
You will not be surprised that I know that. Yeah. All right, good. Anybody else on this program? Oh, David, yeah, of course.
Thank you. I just wanted to make 2 comments. The first, I just really want to express my gratitude to Megan. You've just done an astounding job in taking over for Carly. I was speaking to your counterpart in our camp unit, which is sort of an allied unit, Brandon Cabrera, and everyone speaks so highly of you because I asked what it would be like, and then I've got to see you present. So you've really done, you've just done terrific work, so thank you. I'm very grateful for it. And I think in one small way, your presentation has undersold just how important what you've achieved. And I know, going back to conversations I had with Charlie Hendrickson, Damon Silver, who I see here, and we've talked about how when we started, the job of a public defender and the job of a district attorney was to try a case. And you go in and you learn how to try your cases. And we had great trial attorneys, and that's a core part of our job. But what you've done, and I think in our office we've also done, is to recognize that's actually not the totality of our job anymore, and that you really want to look at the actual person, or from our perspective, the nest of interlocking problems, so that you're not just using the same tool, which is trial and incarceration, for every single problem, and that you have a broader vision. So the data from Philadelphia doesn't surprise me at all. I mean, the specifics of it, I didn't know, but because really we weren't looking as a society at these issues. We were like, hey, I met with the client, told them when the next court date is. I've started to prepare my defense or my prosecution and never thought about where they're living. You know, do they have unmet mental health needs? Do they have economic needs? What's going on? And so this is, you could add new arraignment attorneys who would do nothing more than get them their next arraignment date, right? So it's really more than just adding it. You've helped revolutionize or you know, radically reform the vision of what you do and what we've done. And Molly, you know, your vision on that has really been profound. So I think we're going to see a lot of these changes because we weren't even addressing the problem before. So thank you.
If I could just go back and make one comment to a question that Supervisor Chavez had in reflecting on the Philadelphia study and the individual who you spoke with that was able to break the cycle of recidivism. I can't think of the source right now because, of course, I want it, but there is a study that we recently looked at that was saying that for our indigent clients, being in custody even 48 hours to 6 days can completely change the trajectory of their employment and their family's income stream. And so I think that's something really important because when we're talking about, for instance, items 4 and 5, I believe, and 7, we're talking about reentry and we're talking about gaps in service. We're talking about how we can meet people upon release or even in release. I think that is a really important piece because Charlie found the study. Thank you. 36 to 72 hours in custody can profoundly impact a person and their loved ones. A 2016 article about money bond process experiences and perceptions. And I know this county feels very strongly about supporting our indigent clients who are trying to seek employment. I know that there was a proclamation this month, it's Second Chance Month, and that the county is actively bringing employers in that will hire people who have convictions. And that's amazing. I think we really aim in PAR to sort of bridge the period between having an active criminal case and applying for a job or losing a job, and then what this county is doing with all their second chance efforts. So it's something that we are really aware of and really are trying to continue to brainstorm about how we can support that specific piece.
I don't see any other comments or questions, but just thank you very much, and we'll look forward to future, to the future of this program. And in the meantime, I am really going to be interested in us having a conversation with some of these other communities just to better understand, the success rate, how they're measuring it, and what we could learn from it. So thank you. Congratulations to all of you. I really appreciate it. Appreciate the work. Thank you, our public defender. All right, we're going to go on to item 9, and this is to receive the report from the Behavioral Health Services Department on the Office of Reentry Services relating to jail diversion and communities awaiting placement. Welcome.
Good morning.
Welcome.
Good morning, Supervisor Chavez. I'm members of the Reentry Network. I'm Margaret Obel. I'm the Director for Adult and Older Adult System of Care and Behavioral Health. With me today doing the presentation is Gabby Olivares, and she's the Division Director for the Forensic Diversion and Reintegration Services, as well as Chad Martins from the Office of Reentry Center.
All right, good morning again, Gabby Olivares. I'm going to go ahead and start off our presentation, and then I'll hand it over to my colleague, Chad Martins. All right, next slide, please. Okay, so this report provides an update on our jail diversion programs within behavioral health from the reporting period of January 1st, 2022 through December 31st, 2022. So let's review what our updates and progress are on these jail diversion programs. Since our last report, January 1st of 2022, we have added 131 slots to the following programs. We have added 11 intensive outpatient slots, 10 aftercare slots, 10 full-service partnership slots, 50 intensive full-service partnership slots, 50 assertive community treatment slots, and 3 recliners to the Mission Street Recovery Station. We have also initiated steps to add back 30 slots to our co-occurring program, which has been extremely successful since we lost 43 of those slots. We will be adding those slots back through our amendment process in June of 2023. And alternately, we continue to seek other funding sources. And you'll hear more about our grant opportunities that we've been applying for our diversion programming efforts to increase our capacity long term. And one of the other initiatives that we want to report out on that we're really making progress is in our Evans Lane Recovery Center. We are applying for a substance use treatment certification where we will serve mental health and substance abuse disorders simultaneously. We do know that this population suffers from co-occurring disorders, and we'd like the ability to treat the mental health and the substance abuse disorders in one treatment center. Next slide, please. Now I'd like to review our strategies to increase success rates. We continue to have ongoing provider meetings where we look at our programs. We're customizing, modifying these programs with a focus to improve success rates. We're also developing a more robust engagement and referral process to our substance abuse programs to access treatment in a timely manner with our engagement and outreach efforts inside custody health. We continue to look at research and the latest evidence-based practices that work with the justice-involved population. More recently, we just attended the Forensic Mental Health Conference in San Diego. And on a quarterly basis, we are evaluating our treatment capacity and the needs of this population. Director Obelar and I are scheduling our last meeting with our MTM associates, where we will be reviewing their final reports and recommendations on what efforts we need to initiate in the department to continue to serve this population and decrease our recidivism rates. And our last effort is focusing on training and recruitment of staff with a substance use expertise. As I stated earlier, this population is co-occurring. Next slide, please. Expanding services for justice-involved clients. The JAC list, I think this thing haunts me on a daily. We review this list 4 to 5 times a week, including on the weekends. So our JAC list, what you will see from January of 2022 through, July of 2022 through January of 23, you will see our efforts and how long an individual is staying on the JAC list. So the blue line represents the average days an individual is on the JAC list. And what happens is our team will do an assessment, go before the court, request a treatment placement, and then a court order is issued. And then there is a process that we work with our providers to release that individual into a mental health or a substance abuse program. So when we started recording our efforts in July, you could see that we were at 15.6 days. And our goal is always to release people within 10 days. So August, 10 days, so we continue to trend down. September, we've gone up a little bit, 11.7 days. October, 11.4 days. November, we're starting to, again, bring our list down, 8.5 days. December, 9.7 days. And I'm happy to report in January of 2023, we have that down to 6.6 days. And again, it's because of all the work that our team does to reduce this list. Just some key takeaways. We have successfully reduced the average number of days an individual is spending in the county jail as we transfer them to a mental health or a substance abuse program. Behavioral health is working to significantly increase availability and treatment capacity and placements to ensure residential mental health and substance abuse programs are available for this population. Next slide, please. We do meet with our stakeholders on we have a monthly meeting, our AB 1810 diversion meeting, And so I want to share the progress of our stakeholder recommendations. The first recommendation was to submit a letter of intent to increase funding opportunity through the Department of State Hospital. Happy to report this has been completed. Behavioral Health did submit the letter of intent on December 27th of 2022, where we have obtained annual funding of $100,000 for the next 5 years to support our efforts. And we received this notification on March 3rd of 2023. The next recommendation from our stakeholders was to increase transitional housing units for individuals releasing from a custodial setting. It is really important that we release individuals to treatment and housing simultaneously to ensure that they have better success in community and reintegrating. December 27th of 2022, Behavioral Health was awarded $2 million from the Community Service Infrastructure Grant. We have submitted a space request to start looking for a property to serve this population. Our last recommendation was to develop residential housing settings for individuals that are deemed incompetent to stand trial. Behavioral Health, because we are the leading county with DSH, we participated in a project fund meeting on February 15th of 23. What this means is if we were able to be granted this opportunity, we would receive $750,000 in a startup to stand up a program. And we will actually be attending an all counties meeting June of 2023 to find out more information and how we potentially could go after this grant fund opportunity. Next slide, please. So just a review of our grant awards and what is pending. Our first grant was awarded by the Department of State Hospital back in September 23rd of 2021 in the amount of 1.4. We did receive that 1.4, and what we did was expand and obtain 6 additional crisis residential beds. We right-sized that program. We increased our medication dosage, and this is at our Momentum site. Simultaneously, same date and time and funder, we went out for another $568,000. We also received that award. And what we did with that funding was to right-size our other crisis residential program, our Amelia Wright program, where again, we want the programs to work in conjunction with each other. Depending if somebody goes to the Momentum or the Muriel Wright side, they will receive the same level of care, medication, and programming. Next opportunity was the California Health Facilities Financing Authority, CHAFA. We submitted that application November 15th of 2022. We applied for $2 million. We were awarded the $2 million. And what this means is we will have 8 additional beds. So when someone leaves our program, they have housing and treatment. Next funding opportunity, again, DSH, December 27th, 2022, $100,000. We have received the $100,000. And this will allow us for planning of this work to continue with our stakeholders to look for creative solutions and find alternatives to arrest seriously mentally ill individuals. CHAFA, again, March 3rd of 2023, we submitted another application for $6 million. We are waiting for that decision to come from the state, but that would mean that we could expand our transitional housing to purchase another 18 beds for this population. And lastly, again, Department of State Hospitals, based on our February 15th meeting, we are waiting for the June 23rd meeting. We will be going after this funding again to start up a residential. Startup fees are $750, and the operational contract would mean that it's $125,000 per individual that we treat and wrap around services. So we're just waiting for that meeting. And this would, again, allow us to expand services to our service providers, secure housing and treatment, and wrap services around our incompetent to stand trial, which really has been our most challenging population up to date. All right, and next slide, please. And with that, I am going to go ahead and transition over the rest of the presentation to Mr. Chad Martins.
Good morning again, Chad Martins, Diversion and Reentry Services. So my piece is related to CAPS, or Community Awaiting Placement Supervision. If you remember, this is the program we used to release people to when there wasn't access to treatment and they'd be spending a lot of time in custody. We would release them to the reentry center and they would meet with a team there and they would try to place them in a shelter until a treatment bed opened up. So this team has been meeting weekly since 2017, April 2017, I believe. And we review everybody on the JAC list, which are most of the people on the JAC list placed there by collaborative courts. And so as you can see from the chart here, it's been fluctuating a bit in the past year, but in recent months, related to the updates Gabby gave, the number of people on the list for review have decreased, and we're under 70 in most recent months. Next slide, please. And this slide shows people placed on the JAC list each month. So for example, February of 2023, there were 128 placements on the JAC list. So it, again, fluctuates, but it's about 100 people or so every month being placed on the JAC list. So there's a lot of movement on and off the JAC list. And as Gabby mentioned, there's been a lot of improvements and people are moving off the list much quicker. And so what this multidisciplinary team does when we meet weekly is we used to really review everyone to see if we needed to release them to CAPS, and now this meeting has become more of a care coordination. How do we best release them to treatment as quickly as possible? Next slide, please. So in regards to next steps, what we want to do on our end is pause the weekly meetings as they currently exist and really turn this into a more clinical care coordination case conferencing between behavioral health and custody health. And then we'll have a monthly meeting to discuss any areas where we can support services as other providers and other partners. And so we'll still be closely involved, but we won't be leading the meetings anymore. This will allow behavioral health and custody health to share information with more flexibility and in more detail, which will allow them to discuss more consistently and help streamline releases. And in addition to the monthly meeting, we want to circulate a contact sheet just so everyone is remaining in touch. And if there are any questions, they'll know who to contact immediately and what their role is. And then we'll still have a process for any CAPS releases that do come up. Despite all the movement on and off the JAC list, we have not released anyone to CAPS for over a year just because they've been being placed in treatment. And so if the rare occasion does come up that we need a CAPS release, we will have that process available. We'll still be available with staff at the reentry center to meet them there and provide that service. And then if for some reason other delays or issues arise as they used to, we will be able to reconvene the meetings with a larger multidisciplinary team. That's all I have. Thanks.
Great. I'm going to first see if we have any questions or comments from the public.
We do not.
Seeing none, I'm going to close the public hearing, and I'm going to come to my colleagues on the dais to see if there are any comments or questions. I don't see. Oh, Nick? Oh, Wes?
Are any of your programs for permanent housing?
Sorry, could you repeat the question? I couldn't hear it.
He's asking if any of our programs connect people to permanent housing.
Our providers do, yes. We do the Viets Badat. We coordinate that in custody, yes.
Okay. I think it's a great program.
Molly?
Thank you. Thank you for that presentation. I just want to shout out the addition of 50 FSP beds. That's huge. They're expensive. I imagine that's why the releases are happening more quickly because there are more places to put people. So that's amazing. And I know that's been a lot of pressure again from Supervisor Chavez to kind of make this happen. So just wanted to say it out loud.
Well, actually, out of fear of Judge Manley, so let's be clear.
Let's be honest.
I wanted to just say this is really exciting work, and I think this is also a really important opportunity for us to look at, again, recidivism too, and I know that's part of our bigger program. One request I would like to make is that, when we look at the number of service, you use the term slots, but service, I guess I'll just use the term slots. We're really not talking about 131 slots. You're talking about the ability to help hundreds of people in a year. And so one request I would make, just because these folks all need to really have a grasp of the the actual response, the enormity of it, really, in some respects, or the actual response. And so I would just ask if staff could make sure that when we're using numbers like this, that we're able to say, here's how many people can use it. I'm particularly struck by this, with hospital beds, people innately understand that we don't have 400 beds and 400 people use it a year. But somehow with our mental health services, I have folks saying to me, why do we only have one bed? When really even that one bed equals however many people are able to use that service in a year.
So I would just start with the conversation was the attachment attachment 1, jail diversion programs, where it gives you the program average length of stay, unduplicated, the success rate, just to.
And let me just say, I so appreciate that. And I was really responding to the slides, but I so appreciate that. And so for all of my colleagues, it's packet page 201. I know a lot of you are all fancy using your computers, so it is attachment 1, jail diversion 9A. And I really appreciate this because I think this is moving us so much in the right direction. And to behavioral health, and really, Gabby, I think, colleagues, that these discussions happened as part of a subcommittee of the Blue Ribbon Commission in response, really to a murder in our jails. And, just how far you've all come since that time is just, it's so the right direction. And Gabby, I feel like, poor you, you've been at every one of these meetings. So I do really want to say thank you. And this particular document that you just pointed out is such a reflection of where we're going. And I think your point about being able to look at the success rate percentages is really very powerful. I think this will help us make many, many decisions in the future about how and where we should be investing our limited resources. It's just really helpful, so thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor.
Anybody else on this item? With that, we're going to close this item and just say a big thank you. That ends our meeting. We are adjourned until, I don't know when, someone will, until June 21st at 10 a.m. And just really appreciate all of you bringing, such incredible work to the community. So we are adjourned. Thank you. It's the only time I get to use this.